Welcome to the Elaine Pants Sew Along for Style Semi Fall 2017 pattern collection. Let's go over the pieces that you're going to need. You're going to need 2 for your front. You're going to need 2 for your pocket facing and 2 for your pocket front. 2 pieces for your belt, your fly and fly extension, 1 piece each. You're going to need 4 pieces for your pockets, and you're going to need 2 for your back. So let's get started. So I like to get started on the smaller pieces first. I like to put my pocket together first. So grab 2 of your pocket bags, right sides facing you, and you're going to attach your pocket front along that straight edge, matching up your notches, and you're going to stitch here along these lines. On your remaining 2 pocket bags, you are going to do the same thing for your pocket facings. Right sides facing, matching the notches, and stitching along those lines. So we're going to go to the sewing machine and sew all 4 of these right now. And this entire pattern is sewn with a 1/2 inch seam allowance except for the hem of the pants. For the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to be using a contrasting color thread just so you can see very clearly what I'm doing. And I'm also going to be basting, but if you are using a stretchy fabric, which this pattern is designed for a stretch knit fabric, then you want to use a stretch stitch to sew your pattern together. But just for the purpose of moving through this tutorial quickly, I'm just going to be using a basting stitch. Sometimes I like to do a little like shortcut. When I get to the end of a stitch, I just back stitch and then I put in my next piece. And I just kind of sew off of the first one and then I sew onto the next one, back stitch, and keep sewing. It just saves you a little bit of time in cutting threads and things like that. And then when you're done, if you do it like this, you'll have one long piece. Just snip your threads and then that's it. So now we're going to stitch together your pockets. So you're going to grab one piece that has the pocket facing attached and one that has the pocket front attached. And we are going to match those up at this seam. We're not going to match it up on this edge because they're 2 different sizes on purpose. And so we're going to match that up and we're going to stitch starting here with our seam allowances pressed towards the pocket bag, and we're going to stitch all the way around here. We're going to pivot, come around, pivot, pivot, pivot all the way around back to this seam, and then we're going to stop right here. So grab your pant front and just choose one. Right side up, we're going to attach the pocket facing. So the pocket bag that we just made, we're going to grab the side with the facing, which is the smaller edge here, and we are going to attach that to the front of the pants. So you are only attaching the pocket facing out to the pant front. You're not going to attach the larger attachment here. You're just going to flip it out of the way and do it here. And so what that's going to look like when you fold it over is when the pant is folded like this, then you're not going to see the pocket at all when it's worn. All you're going to see is the larger piece that's under there. So that's how it's going to look. And so just do that on the other side. So again, I'm grabbing my other pant front, right side facing, and I'm attaching the pocket facing, which is this smaller one only. So I'm flipping everything else out of the way. So go ahead and give this a clean press just to make sure everything is nice, crisp, and flat, because we're not going to be doing any top stitching. These are a very sleek pair of pants. So you want to make sure that that's pressed down flat. To secure everything in place, to just kind of keep the pocket from flapping around as we are constructing the rest of the pants, we're just going to baste it together just along the top edge here. See, just right across the top there. So right sides together, we are going to sew just a small portion of your center front seam here. So on the left front of your pant, you should have marked your stitching guide here. On there, I've marked mine. You can barely see it there, my chalk is fading, but you want to start at that point, and then we're going to stitch to the bottom. So you're not going to stitch the whole way, you're just going to stitch from that point to the bottom. So grab your pants, and we're looking at them from the right side. You're going to fold down the right front of your pant, which is actually your left side. And you're going to be working on the left side of the front of your pant, which is the side that has the stitching guide. Grab your fly, and if you want to, you can go ahead and finish the raw edges of your fabric. If you have fabric that frays, just finish that curved edge around there. Or you can do a narrow hem on it, or you can just leave it as is. But attach that at the center front seam, and we're going to stitch that together right here. Okay, and you're going to press this open, and then once you've done that, we are going to install the zipper. So now we're going to install our zipper. So grab your zipper and turn it face down. And you want to lay the right side that is facing you, the right side of your zipper tape, on the center of the seam that you just sewed. We're not going to stitch this, but I just want you to position your zipper like this. And pin that in place. You can pin that just enough to keep it in place. And you want it directly over that seam. Now, the one that we're actually going to sew is this one, and so we're going to lay that down next to the one that we just pinned, and we're going to pin that one in place. And so we're going to stitch the left side. We're not going to stitch the right side, we're going to stitch the left side. We just pinned the whole thing in place just so it won't shift around on us. So now when your fly is turned back, you won't be able to see it, and that's just how it should be. So let's turn to the back. So right now your fly is loose, it's flapping over. What you want to do is fold it back in place and just baste it across here just to hold it in place, just to stop it from flapping around while we do the rest of this zipper installation. Okay, so that's in place there. We're going to move on to the rest of the zipper. So looking from the wrong side of your pant, on the opposite seam allowance where we need to install our zipper, you're going to press that back a ½ inch, and then you're going to lay your remaining zipper tape on top of that seam allowance like this. Now you're going to stitch this down through all the layers, so your stitching will show on the front of your pant. So make sure to use a good matching thread there. So now you're going to stitch through all layers to secure this. Okay, so go ahead and turn your pants over, and we are going to stitch along our stitching guide here on the front. And you can zip your zipper up to make sure everything is in line like it's supposed to be. And so now you're just going to stitch a line following your stitching guide that is on the front of your left front of your pant. And this is to hold that fly in place completely. Okay, so now you're going to grab your fly extension. So grab your fly extension and fold it in half, right side spacing. And you can take a serger and serge around all of these raw edges, or you can sew it on your sewing machine. So it'll look like this. And now you want to go back to your pant, and on the right front, so the right side when you're wearing it, the right front, you are going to align the raw edges of your fly extension on top of the zipper tape from the back, like so. And so from the back, it'll look like this. You'll have your fly extension, the raw edges laying on top of your zipper tape like that. And then you are going to stitch that together. And I prefer to do mine on the right side, from the right side of my fabric, because I like to try to follow that same stitching line that I just made to secure the other side of the zipper tape, so that I don't have double rows of stitching. And it's just easier because the bulk of the pant is on this side of the sewing machine. It's just easier for me to control, so I like to do it on this side. And there you go. You've got the front, you've got the fly, and the whole zipper situation installed. So let's move on to the back of the pant, and the first thing we're going to do is stitch those darts in place. If you're kind of new to darts, I have a video on darts on the channel. It's one of my first YouTube videos, so you can check that out to get some really detailed information about sewing darts. You're just going to do that on both sides. So right sides facing, we're going to sew our pant together at the center back seam. So this seam here, we're going to sew straight down. And you want to go ahead and press those seam allowances flat and finish those raw edges. And now we're going to attach the pant back to the front. So right sides facing, I like to start at the center back seam and the center front seam, and I like to match those up first. I always match my seams and my notches first, and then from there I like to match or pin together the hem, and then I distribute my pinning equally there. And the reason being is that many patterns, especially pants or jeans, sometimes the back of the pattern is drafted to be longer than the front, just to give you more room for your booty and moving around. And so you want to ease in any extraness just from the back into the front. You want to do that kind of evenly so that it doesn't bunch up on you while you're sewing. So I like to just pin at the points that I know are going to match the seams, the notches, and the hems, and then I distribute evenly from there. Okay, and so I'm going to go to the other side, and this is my center. This is my center front and center back seam here. So I'm going all the way down to the hem. Pull that out, find my middle, so this pant isn't drafted like how I was mentioning, but because it's stretched, but because of say that just okay. So now we're going to sew all the way down from one end of the pant leg to the other. So now we're going to attach the pants together at the side seams, and so you're going to attach the side of your back to this actual front pocket area here on your front. So I pinned the top, and then I pinned where all the pockets situation is meeting down there, and then I'm going to pin at the hem and do the same type of practice that I did at the inseam. It's just a good habit to have for me. So you hate to like sew the whole length of something, especially pants, and then you find out when you get all the way to the hem that it's jacked up looking. It looks like this when you sewed it. So it helps to really pin and take the time to distribute that fabric evenly by using, you know, those different touch points that I was talking about. Because you do not want to have to pick all of that stitching out, especially in a stretch fabric. It is not fun. Okay, so that's one side done, and we're going over to the other side. Pants starting to come together. This is my favorite part. And these pants are really easy to sew. Don't be intimidated by the fly if this is your first couple of pairs of pants that you've ever made. That's something that used to put me on pause as well, but now, girl, I'm like, let me get some pants. Because it's nothing like a pair of pants that fits your body. You cannot buy that type of fit off the rack all the time, unfortunately. Okay, so we've got our pants together, and now we just need to put on our waistband. So we got the front of the pants looking good, if I'd have pressed my seams. And then we got the back of the pants looking good. And so let's move on to our waistband. So grab your waistband, and you're going to stitch it together at the center back. Press that seam allowance flat. And you can also trim this seam allowance as well. It's going to be folded into your waistband, so you don't necessarily have to finish it if you don't want to, but I do want you to press it flat at the very least and trim those seam allowances. So once you've done that, grab your pant, and you are going to align the center back seam of your waistband that you just sewed to the center back seam of your pant. Unzip your pants, and I want you to pin your waistband at the front, the center front, and I want you to leave 1/2 inch of hangover here for your waistband. Now I want you to pin the rest of that section to your pants. Same thing on the other side. You want to open out your fly extension and then pin 1/2 inch over. And then pin the rest. And so. So now I want you to grab your waistband, and I want you to fold and press 1/2 inch all the way around on the remaining edge. So disclaimer, this fabric does not press well at all, but it shows up really well on camera, and I just wanted to get fabric that you guys can clearly see what I'm doing. And so that was my compromise. So that's why I'm not really pressing it, because it's not going to make that huge of a difference anyway. So you want to press your hem of sorts on your waistband right here, and then once you've done that, let me show you what you're going to do for the waistband. So your folded edge is pressed up here. Now what you're going to do is fold this up and then bring it back down like this, where the folded edges are meeting. And so you should see a folded edge on the front, and you should see your seam allowance on the back. And so what you're going to do is stitch right next to your fly here with that extra 1/2 inch seam allowance that you aligned on your waistband. What you're going to do now is trim that seam allowance, because when you turn it over, you want it to be nice and clean, and then your waistband will look just like this. So just take your scissors, trim that seam allowance, and then you're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. So you've got your folded edge here, and then you're going to fold this up, then meet it back down like this, and stitch next to your fly extension. Again, trim that seam allowance. Let me show you. You can cut a little angle there, but just make sure not to cut your stitching. And then you're going to turn it, and it's going to line up perfectly with your fly extension. And so now where you're left with a nice clean finish on the inside, because remember, your pants have the seam allowance pressed. And so now all you have to do at this point is hand stitch, excuse me, do a slip stitch to secure that waistband to the inside of your pants and close up those seam allowances. Keeps it nice and pretty on the inside. Also, if you have a label on your pants that you want to attach, go ahead and attach that before you secure your waistband to the inside, because you will see that stitching on the outside of your pants. So if you have a label that you like to do before you slip stitch your waistband, go ahead and secure that on the inside of your waistband, and then when you secure your waistband to the inside, that stitching won't be visible. And so all you have to do is slip stitch your pants closed here, and you are going to sew on your button or your hook and eye, depending on your preference. I have made these pants with both. I don't prefer one or the other, but if you want a really clean and sleek look, then do your hook and eye. And I like to do 2 of them. That's why I put 2 marks on the pattern. And then do a hem on your pant for 1 inch. I prefer to do a blind hem when I'm looking for a really sleek finish on these pants. So that's all you have to do on these pants, and you are finished.